So, welcome to the podcast Lore Trek. We are talking about Star Trek lore. I am Parker. I'm super into Star Trek. And then we have Atlee here. We've got Atlee here who is just getting into it.
I have been skimming off the top. What have we talked about already? The Klingons. I know a bit about the Klingons. Moon of Praxis.
Moon of Praxis, yeah.
Um, we got the Federation. Start of the Federation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so today we are talking about species 8472.
Okay. What the hell? Just give it a name.
8472. And we only. So, I guess to start out, we should start out with Voyager. This is a species that Voyager met, and Voyager is a science and exploration vessel that was thrown into the Delta Quadrant, right? Because the Federation and Klingons, species 8472, yep.
All right.
Um, the Klingons, the Vulcans, the
What is a
Andorans,
Delta Quadrant?
Terrans.
You're confusing me
Right.
now.
No,
What is a Delta
I'm trying
Quadrant?
to. You're right. So in the Alpha Quadrant is all of the races that are pretty much known, well known, right? The Vulcans, the
Okay.
Romulans are
So
in the Alpha
like, if
Quadrant.
we have the Milky Way, right?
Right.
And this is it's a donut, right?
Right.
And if I remember properly, we're in the bottom, like we're in this area, right? Here's
Yes. It's
the Federation.
the entire galaxy is split up into four parts. We've got the Alpha, we've got the Beta, we've got the Gamma, and the Delta.
Okay, so I assume it's kind of like a crisscross like that.
Right.
And then so we're in the bottom half,
Right.
right?
Of the Alpha Quadrant.
Okay,
Okay.
so where'd they end up?
And Voyager ended up in the Delta Quadrant. The Delta Quadrant is above the Alpha
Oh, so
Quadrant.
it's up here,
Yes.
like in this area. Okay, so
Right.
top they traveled all the way past the center.
Yes. So how
What
they
the
did that
hell?
was that there was a alien on a space station, and he was trying to pull random. He would basically pull random ships from different species over to his space station to test them to see if they had the genetic markers that could make them be the next person who runs the station. You need certain.
Don't join a space cult, kids.
Right. You need a certain genetic marker because you need to be able to live long and you need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And their ship ends up getting picked up by this alien and moved all the way to the Delta Quadrant.
Why? For
Um,
what reason? He's like, hey, kids, you want to do some drugs? And
right.
then you
Well,
just wake up and you're trillions upon trillions of, what
the
is it,
idea,
space meters? What's
right.
it called? What's it called?
The
What's
light
light
years.
years. Light years. There you go. Trillions of light years away from home.
Right.
Okay.
Right. They were essentially at max warp. They were 70. I think it was either 70 to 75 years away from the Federation at max
Jesus.
warp. And um, and Deep Space Nine opened up that wormhole to the Gamma
Mm-hmm.
Quadrant, and that was also going to be, traveling all the way
Gamma
over to the
quadrant
Gamma
is where?
Quadrant.
Left or right?
So it would be right, and
Okay,
then
so
the
it'd be like
left
over
would be
here.
Delta, or
Okay,
sorry,
so that's
Beta.
gamma.
Right.
Um, what's this? This
That's
is alpha.
Delta. Yeah, that's Alpha. That's
This,
Delta,
oh, okay, and
and
then
that's Beta.
whatever the hell that one is. All
Yeah.
right, it's beta.
Right. And Deep Space Nine is in the Beta Quadrant,
Uh-huh.
and it has a wormhole to the Gamma Quadrant. But again, taking that wormhole was going to be almost the. First of all, you had to go through enemy territory, and secondly, it was going to be about the same amount of journey for the people to get back to the Federation. So,
Mhm.
Voyager is stuck in the Delta Quadrant, and they slowly realize that they're surrounded by, first of all, scientifically advanced species that they've never met
Uh-huh.
before, And secondly, the Borg. They find out that the
Oh.
Borg originated somewhere within the Delta Quadrant. And
Okay. So wait, there's a scientifically advanced species and then the Borg.
right, there's a
Now,
whole
can you
bunch.
give me a rundown of the Borg?
Right. So, first of all, the scientifically advanced species, they're all kind of broken up or very small
Hmm.
powers or factions because of either in-faction war or because the Borg has just ripped through their territory. The Borg is
I
known
see.
as this kind of mechanical race that has really mysterious background. Nobody really knows exactly um, nobody really knows exactly how they're they originated,
Okay.
but what we do know is that they started on some planet and then pretty much overthrew their overlords and then became hell bent on achieving perfection. And the way they do this is they assimilate. The way they do this is they take other species in and take their technology and put them a part of this collective, right, where you share
So,
thoughts and memories and feelings.
so I mean, that doesn't sound much different from the Federation.
Well, the Federation does it very diplomatically. These people do it very through
At the point
war.
of a gun.
Right, yes.
And they're very mechanical. Let me look at a picture of them.
Yes, they are
Right?
very mechanical.
So is it like a hive mind of sorts?
Yes, it is a hive mind. It is a hive mind. They
Okay.
do have a queen. They have a Borg queen.
Oh, is she hot?
She did have intercourse with Data.
Oh, yeah!
Data
My
got
man
laid.
being the Hive Queen!
Yeah.
Dude! There's gotta be pictures of that. Someone's gotta have drawn. I mean, like, look at these guys. Why don't we do an episode on the Borg? They're way cooler. Look at them.
Well, we will. We will eventually have an
Alright,
episode on the Borg.
alright.
Um, but anyway, so
Oh.
they're stuck in this Delta Quadrant where a large part of it is Borg territory, and Voyager needs to get through Borg territory. What they slowly start to notice is that Borg cubes are being destroyed left and right, and they're wondering, right? Because the Borg cubes are feared throughout the galaxy as
They
these.
fight with cubes?
They do fight with cubes. They fight with cubes, squares, or they fight with cubes, circles, triangles, and diamonds. Usually they go in their cubes, and their cubes are feared as one of the most, you know, first of all, because they have so many species that they've just assimilated and taken all their technological knowledge, they have very advanced technology. And one cube was able to take out, at the Battle of Wolf 359, was able to take out a large swath of a defending fleet of Federation ships, which is very hard to do, right? One cube
Okay,
was able to do that.
I see.
And almost, took over um, Earth.
Uh-huh.
So they find a whole bunch of cubes destroyed within Borg territory.
I see.
And they're confused, right? So they end up they find one ship, and they notice that it's a in the wreckage of all these Borg ships. They find one ship, and it's a bio ship. And basically, what that means is it's part of kind of like it's weird because it's got a whole bunch of uh, organic tissue as its hull,
Huh.
and it's this one ship that is kind of disabled. And they go on that ship and
Mm.
they notice it's a entirely new species. And this entirely new species have been destroying them, and the Borg are in a state of war, and they have been
Mm-hmm.
destroying the Borg in large numbers.
I see.
This species becomes known as 8472, and the Borg
Okay.
describe them in 2373 as the most perfect beings that they've ever encountered.
Yeah, because if you're running around in flesh ships, you've pretty much figured everything out at that point.
Yes.
You
Not
know.
only flesh ships, they are
Uh-huh.
destroying
Because
one of
what
the
are the
most
Borg gonna
feared
do? They
villains.
can't assimilate a ship entirely made out of flesh,
That's
you
right.
know?
That's actually their problem, is that they kept trying to assimilate species 8472 and their ships and noticed that none of their, because they assimilate based off of nanoprobes or
Mm-hmm.
nanites, right? And they would
Mm-hmm.
infect the bloodstream and then use their own bodies makeup, right? The iron in their blood and things
So
like
it's like
that
a
to make.
virus, technically. Like,
Right.
could you consider it like a Borg virus?
Yes, that's
Okay.
how they assimilate people,
So,
right?
like, let's say you ate a lot of curry, like a lot of
Yes.
curry. You know what I mean? And your blood was just on fire. You eat hot sauce all
Right.
day. You huffed, jalapenos at night. And so, like, if these nanites entered into you, my assumption is, your blood is poisonous. You know what I mean? It is acidic. It would just melt these things. Is
Possibly
Could you? I'm theory crafting a way that this
that
this
you
this
yeah.
that you can counter the Borg.
So
You know
India
what I
is
mean?
never going to get assimilated, is that what you taught me?
India, Mexico,
Right.
anyone just the white people. Basically, we're the weakest group, and we're gonna become robots.
Well,
What do you think?
the problem is that the Borg nanoprobes are very, very good at adapting. Very good
Mm,
at adapting. And so
try adapting to
curry.
chicken tikka
Yeah,
masala.
okay.
I
Um
said that wrong. Oh
but
no.
what we notice is
Good.
that
Hungry out.
species 8472 is just destroying Borg, and so the captain of Voyager, Janeway, Catherine Janeway,
Mm-hmm.
uh, decides that she needs a way to get through Borg territory because it's the only way home, right? Get through Borg territory. And she
Mm-hmm.
goes, okay, well, I need to get through Borg territory. I will offer them a deal. We have
Mm-hmm.
found out a way to use the nanoprobes and change the nanoprobes to start to infect both the ship and the
Mm-hmm.
species itself. So that way the Borg could actually fight them.
Mm-hmm.
And they found a way to put these nanoprobes in a torpedo, and hitting the ship with that torpedo would release the nanoprobes into space and thus assimilate the bioship.
Oh, so they just turned the virus on its head, and now they're using it to.
Right, Voyager was. Voyager
Uh-huh.
found out a way of using these nanoprobes um, to basically they figured out a way to assimilate this species, which the Borg were not able to do, right? And that's one of the reasons why they were getting destroyed. And so they offered this technology in exchange for safe passage through Borg territory.
Uh-huh. Wait, why not deal with the one killing the Borg?
Because because Voyager was like, this isn't our fight, right? We don't want to
Yeah,
help out the Borg. If they kill the Borg or they both kill themselves, that's fine.
but
But
you'd figure that an enemy of my enemy is my friend. Why are you making a deal with the enemy?
why are you making a deal with because first of all because they whenever they found that bioship, right, they went to go
Mm-hmm.
investigate, and one of the species 8472 attacked one of their crew members, and it was found out that whenever that species, not only did that species have psychic abilities, but also that whenever that species were to slash you with its, kind of claws, you would start to pretty much it would, much like the Borg, it would use your body and infect you with this kind of virus, and you'd end up dying, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
they were like, okay, well, this is a scary thing. This is a scary new enemy. We have no idea where they come from, and but we do know the Borg. So pretty much, do you want the devil you don't know or the devil you know? And it looks like the Borg is getting destroyed. So if they could help out the Borg, which were very weak at this time, they were like, okay, well, they're going to be weak for a while, right? So we might actually end up bringing some more peace. So they go, okay, here's some technology. Let's
You
get the
can't.
what
It just seems idiotic.
to give the Borg this technology to help
It
their enemy.
seems but also it seems idiotic. Oh, wait a minute. Are you telling they figured out a way to make the species 8472 technology fight against them? Or are you talking about they're like, hey, we figured out a hole in your defenses, the Borg. If we show you where we found this hole, you'll let us through.
No, so they said, hey, we have a torpedo, and we found a
That
way to
could.
modify your probes, your nanoprobes, to be able to infect and destroy the bioships.
Oh, I see, I see, I see.
And we
So
found
you
this
just made
technology.
the Borg stronger because
Right.
you're stupid.
Right. Well, they were like, it's either that or we all die. And it turns out that they had a telepath on board Voyager that was able to communicate with species 8472. And
Wait, humans
8472,
are telepaths? Wait, there's telepaths now?
there are telepaths. There are betazoids from the Federation, which are empaths, right? They sense emotion. And in the Delta Quadrant,
Betazoids.
betazoids, yeah.
I
They're
need to think
basic.
of fiction.
They're empathetic humans. They're um, empathy sensing humans.
Empathy sensing humans. They're just model after.
What?
They're just model after like psychics. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's a
Look, they
lot
just
of.
look like. I will lead your future. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, in the Delta Quadrant, they met a telepathic race that one of the individuals from that telepathic race decided to join Voyager on their quest, named Kess, and Kess was able to speak to 8472 and found out their intentions. Their intentions were to destroy the impure, were to conquer the galaxy, because what we found out is that species had already conquered their own galaxy. And not only are they not from this galaxy, they're from a different dimension
Oh,
called
I see.
biofluidic space,
Uh huh.
which the properties of which are unlike anything that has ever been seen. And what turns out is this species conquered that galaxy and then was just sitting there going, okay, well, we have nothing else to conquer. And then it turns out that Borg started the war by finding out about this dimension through the assimilation of a species that had, you know,
Was able to reach it.
was able to reach it. And they too started sending ships into this dimension, this biofluidic space. And species
Mm.
8472 noticed that there was something else out there. And so they were like, it's finally time for us to conquer. So they figured out how to create the same portal that the Borg did, and they went
Uh-huh.
through and they sent in huge amounts of invasion fleets. And so Voyager in the Borg's territory going, oh no, there's invasion fleets that are destroying cubes. Like one of them is destroying a cube. There's
Uh-huh.
no way that any of us are going to survive if the Borg don't somehow win this war. At
Uh-huh.
least we can fight the Borg. There's no way that we'd fight these people. And so they give them this torpedo and this schematics for the torpedo. They say, okay, here is something called, a biomolecular warhead that we have just developed using modified nanoprobes, and we can help you destroy that enemy in exchange for safe passage. And so that
You could have
happens.
asked for a little bit more, don't you think?
Possibly, but the Borg have been known to not be. They don't negotiate. They've never negotiated with anyone in their entire life. So
Huh.
this being the first negotiation between the Federation and the Borg, the captain of Voyager was like, okay, well, if we give him a little bit more, hopefully this will open negotiations.
Well, I guess it
You get,
hasn't.
huh?
And there has, but it hasn't
But it
though.
hasn't, right? But they
Of
were
course
like,
it
here's
hasn't.
here's this, give us safe passage through your territory. So they give him this warhead, and the Borg use it to significantly dwindle the numbers of species 8472. Significantly destroyed. This torpedo becomes vastly successful, destroying hundreds of these ships,
Hmm.
and the species 8472 withdrew into their own realm to rebuild.
We know the Borg, and we know they're just going to go in there. They're going to take over the whole thing, and you just gave them an entire dimension.
Right. Well, that was the idea, is that they were like, okay, well, the Borg right now are way too weak, right? They can't
Hmm.
really push into that system because for fear that species 8472 would rebuild faster than
Respect.
them, right?
Mhm.
And so species 8472 lives in this dimension for a little bit, and then what's really interesting is that they start building space stations about a year later all around the galaxy.
Uh-oh.
And these space stations are designed to do one thing and one thing only.
Find the Borg.
No,
Oh.
these space stations are designed to look, interact, and act like Starfleet.
Why? But why, though?
So they build all these things. They find out a way of creating a serum that allows them to change shape. These this species, and they change shape
Okay.
into humans. They have decided that humanity is a much bigger threat than the Borg because humanity was able to find out and find information and build technology that was able to defeat them that the Borg could not. And so they decide,
Because I feel like the Borg can't invent anything for themselves. They can only use knowledge that they found
yes,
previous. They're
that
not
is very true. Yes.
they seem highly adaptive, but that is simply because they're able to take the other person's technology. And if they can't do that, they get destroyed completely.
Yes. Yes, because once they're in
Okay.
the collective, right, the
Mhm.
collective pretty much is just hell bent on assimilating people.
Yeah, if you have one thought, there's no challenge to that one thought.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
There's
there's
no
no
one.
innovation either, right? Because
Yeah, it's just
nobody's thinking about
stagnating.
right. So their only ability to increase their technology is through assimilation of higher technologically advanced
I
species.
see.
And since
Okay.
the humans were able to create this deadly weapon that destroyed vast amounts of their ship, sent their entire invasion force back to their own territory. They were like, okay, the Borg is no threat. There's none to be here. We can destroy the Borg at any time.
Mhm.
Humans, on the other hand, there needs to be an invasion of humanity. And so they create all of these giant space stations that
Okay, I'm gonna pause you right here
yes,
because we need to talk about what these guys look like. I'm pulling up a picture of them right now. Okay, tell me a bit about their body before
yes,
we go any further. I want to know what makes these guys so superior.
yes. So
Do they
remember,
have giant claws? Are they?
yes. So to reiterate, the Borg considered them the only perfect species. They are perfection. And the reason why they are perfection to the Borg is that they have telepathic powers. Their claws, they have giant claws which, whenever is slashed, they input their own DNA into whatever they slash, which ends up becoming poison to the host and kills them off. They have, 500 times the amount of DNA information in one cell than any other species. Um, and they have created this perfect mesh, the Borg at least see, the perfect mesh um, between organic life and
Mhm.
machines, right? Because they have
So they
created
have machines.
they do well their bio ships are part machines, part
Okay.
biology, right? Their
Okay.
whole hull is, flesh, but it's also got a whole bunch of like technology within that to allow it to go to warp and things like that. So they've created
They look very silly.
they look a lot like Sir Bulba from Star Wars, just much
Okay.
larger,
They remind me of a very 1980s alien. Like E.T., they had the same skin and like
yes,
wrinkles and bony things as E.T.
yes.
For some reason, aliens are always like, they gotta be bony, they gotta have a lot of protruding skeletal structure, and they're always gotta be like tan and weird.
Right.
So it's kind of the vibe I'm getting from them.
Yeah.
They do not seem physically imposing. It feels like if I shoot one of these things, they just die.
They are not physically imposing, but they're first of all, they have very superior intellect, right? So they're very
Mhm.
smart. Again, they have psychic abilities, so they are able to, you know, um, they're able to use that to their advantage.
Okay.
And they're very fast. They're much larger than humans, much larger, much taller than humans. And so they are imposing in that way. But again, they are very kind of strength in numbers. Their bioships only have one pilot in them, but they were able to destroy, a couple of those bioships were able to destroy a cube, which again is this kind of measuring of power that's insane within the Star Trek
I see.
universe. That's
Okay.
insane.
For an equivalent, how many battleships or a warship equivalent
Yes.
of Starfleet's ships would you say it would take to take down the cube?
Yeah, actually, then the First Contact, right? First Contact, the
Mm-hmm.
movie, starts out with a battle with one Borg cube, and it takes about 7 or 8 ships. And not only that, those 7 or 8 ships are horribly damaged. And
Okay.
it says in that ship, or in that movie, that they had already moved through like the first line of the defenses of Starfleet, which we don't even know how many that is. But
I
a
see.
cube is extremely powerful.
Okay.
Yes, and partially
Okay.
because they're able to adapt so quickly. If you use one weapon on them, if you use it again, then they have a 50% to 80% chance of adapting. If you use it a third time, they have adapted. That weapon no longer works.
Mm, okay.
Right. So the only way that the Federation was able to beat them was to
It's just shoot all the different guns constantly.
constantly change their weapon every shot, which
Mm.
eventually you will run out of frequencies that you can shoot at.
Mm.
Yes.
So what do you do then?
Right. At that point, you're screwed.
Okay. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So this is why they were so feared, is because it was like,
Mm.
oh my god, they were one or two of these ships were taking down like fleets of these cubes.
Mm.
And so once they got these bioneural warheads, they were able to take down this. They were able to drive them back. And again, Species 8472 was like, oh, Borg aren't a problem, but humans are. So they built all these space
That's
stations,
so funny.
and they transformed into humans, and they use these space stations as training grounds to train. They do this shapeshifting so that way they could destabilize Earth, and Voyager finds out about it because again they had all these space stations far away from Earth and
Mm-hmm.
Earth's sensor abilities, so that way Earth couldn't tell that they were training these operatives in this space to look and act, sound like humans.
Mm-hmm.
And Voyager goes down and finds this out and attempts to de-escalate the situation. They find out that they're training these species, this species to become and eventually destroy the Federation because they say, okay, our only way to conquer the galaxy is to destroy these people who clearly have the technological wherewithal to destroy
Handle
us.
us.
Right. So in 2375, Voyager discovers this. They send a man down, and Commander Chakotay, which is the second in command, does peace talks with Species 8472 after
Mm-hmm.
uh, after ending up falling in love with one of them.
Oh.
Yeah, who was in human form. And they basically
Uh-oh.
say, "Hey, this was not our plan. Our plan was not to, completely destroy you. We at the time, Voyager didn't even know that the Borg started the war with Species 8472. They thought that
Mm-hmm.
Species 8472 had invaded this realm. And so they said, look, we are not your enemy. We are trying to be peaceful explorers and navigators. And in a sign of peace and
Mm-hmm.
prosperity, we will make you a deal. you destroy all of these space stations that are training your operatives, and we will give you the schematics to the bioneural warhead, so that way you can create defenses against it.
Mm.
And they said, in this, we do not ask for much, but the hope is to open up peaceful negotiations between our two realms and to show you we are not your enemy. And the leader of that kind of space station decides that that is a worthwhile goal, and he destroys the rest of the space stations and travels back to fluidic space is what they call it, but it's,
Okay.
you know,
Why would you tell them to destroy the space stations? Hey, just why not give them to us?
because the space
Yeah.
stations again were just built to train them as Starfleet. They were out in the middle of the Delta Quadrant. Again,
Mm.
no Federation vessel had ever been to the Delta Quadrant.
Okay.
So, and again, at high warp, at the maximum warp, Voyager would take 75 years to get there. So the
Mhm.
Federation had no ability to keep these space stations for themselves.
I see. I see.
Yes.
All right. Anyway, so they go back to fluid space, and do they begin to kick the butt of the
Borg, yes.
Borg again?
Yes, the Borg basically close off any way of their cubes going into fluidic space because, again, these species 8472 adapted to their
Hmm.
technology, so they become very disconcerted, right? So they, again, shut off every ability of their ships to go through fluidic space. And because species 8472 had made this deal, they started to realize that, or they started to question, right? Because species 8472's society was built upon basically the fascist ideal of propaganda.
Yeah.
And the leaders of this species 8472, which later became known as the Undine by the Federation, basically said, hey, every other race is inferior to us, right? Every other race does not have the capacity to enjoy art, does not have the capacity to understand how
Hmm.
the galaxy should be run. Therefore, we need to
Okay.
destroy every other species,
Well,
right?
that seems a little. That's just. Hey, look, this dog can clearly not understand the jokes that Family Guy says, so I'm gonna kill this dog.
Right. Well, I mean, they
Bro,
they had that
why?
they had and needed that ideology to conquer their own galaxy, right? So this is
Yeah.
just leftover ideology from those wars that they were in. And so, but after learning, oh no, humans are quite complex after having to train like them, right? Understand, read
Hmm.
their literature, talk about philosophy, all of these giant subjects. They slowly began to understand that humans were much more than just these war barbaric civilization that somehow made it to warp. And
Hmm.
after this, after this gift essentially that Voyager gave them,
Yeah.
they went back to their fluidic space and haven't really come out since.
How long ago was that?
This was in this was in they ended up leaving in 2377. They ended up,
Okay.
you know, uh, that was the last mention of them in 2377. We end up learning about them in 2373. So they're in the galaxy for about 4 to 5 years before they go back into their fluidic space, and we don't ever really hear much about them after that point.
I see.
That is,
So,
yeah,
so they're probably having a civil war or something.
there is something going on within their fluidic space. Nobody really knows if they've decided to remain peaceful and they've decided to, live within their
You'd
fluidic
hope they
realm.
come back and just lash out the Borg, wipe them off
Right.
the planet, and
That
then
that would be the hope, but it seems
you're like,
that
"Yo, check this out! Bam, gone."
yeah,
That would be nice.
we'll
Knock
do
those
you a
guys down a
solid.
peg.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
do you a solid. Yeah.
but also it'd be like a revenge kind of story. You know what I mean? You come in here, you start shooting at my people. I come back, I hit you with a rock, I kill you. You know?
Right.
Like that
Right.
just makes sense. Seems
So
fair.
they have retreated to their own space, and we don't really hear much from them. What is really interesting about them, though, I will say, is first of all,
Hmm.
not only were they very technologically superior, um, they ended up being willing to negotiate and be diplomatic, which is really weird for this
Hmm.
species that was really hell bent on conquering. But after Voyager
Hmm.
gave this gift, they started understanding, hey, maybe we should.
Well, there's a difference, Parker. So, like, let's say you break into someone's house. Like, this is essentially what these guys have done, right? And you're like, I'm gonna rob you, and the guy goes, okay, uh, you can try to rob me, but I have this thing that can kill any. I have this torpedo now that can kill you instantly. And they're like, well, now I don't really want to rob you anymore. We can talk.
Well, here's the
You know,
problem too: is
they
that
they had they thought they had all the cards. The Federation goes, hey, I got this super torpedo that can just destroy you easily.
right.
And they go, oh, crap.
Well, here's the hard part too: is that they didn't even know about the galaxy up until the Borg invaded them, and then they were like, "Oh, we got a whole new realm to conquer," and then they push everybody through that, through those portals that they were able to create. They're like, "Oh, hell yeah!" And then their ships start getting destroyed right after they're having massive victories
Mhm.
against the Borg. Massive victories. There was one point like. God, what was it? Like 70 million drones had been destroyed in the past, 4 or 5 days of the war and the start of the war, which was insane, right? Like
What is a drone?
a drone is one individual that had been assimilated by the collective.
Oh, I see. So 70 million people essentially were
Right.
just
We're just wiped out.
these guys were kicking
These
ass.
guys were insane. Insane. They were kicking ass and taking names up until Voyager's torpedo. Then they
you
were like,
think
obviously these people are the worst villains, right?
you'd think that the Federation would be like, yo, hey, can we kill the Borg really quickly? Hey, can you come in here? We'll help you. We'll just wipe the Borg out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, well the problem is that
Because,
they see the Borg as a species to which, like although they're
but it
enemies.
isn't though. Like it isn't. It's just taking over people's minds. You
Yeah.
know, you can't argue. You can't make deals with that. That's a literal hive mind.
Yeah. Well, again, I think Voyager was trying to come at it without, the most diplomatic. Again, they had to get through Borg territory
Hmm.
and they end up meeting.
I don't know. I think that's stupid. I
Yeah.
think the species 8472 should stop being a little baby. Come in town,
And
show the
just
Borg what's up, wipe them off the face of the planet.
yeah, well, they don't get anything for that though. That's the hard part.
Yeah, but they get to feel good,
They
and
get
they
to
get
feel good.
revenge.
Huh?
They get revenge. You know.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that they think it's worth sacrificing their more people. It seems that after their talk with Voyager, they went into a state of isolation
Mm.
because we don't ever hear anything from them again, and that's partially because Voyager is um, the last Star Trek series that was that
That's
far into
good.
the future. Yeah, was good. Was that far into the future, right? Like 2377 is kind of the last of Voyager. That's the highest um, date that we end up getting to in the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager series.
Okay.
Only recently, through Picard and Discovery, do we find out what happened, what potentially happens. I like to say that those two are in a different universe. Alex
Okay,
Kurtzman
you're
would
not a
like them.
huge fan.
Yeah, Alex Kurtzman would like them to be in the same universe, but I tell him that they're basically in these alternate dimensions or whatever, because Star Trek loves those.
Yeah, that's my species 8472. They're pretty cool.
I like them. I think they're really interesting. They're
They
really interesting.
seem very dumb. They seem like they have so much potential in lore to be really cool. You would finally see this, the ultimate meat versus machine kind of kind of war, and they
Yeah.
just don't do enough with it.
Well, they are found. The Borg and the Undine, or the Undine, do fight a lot throughout Star Trek lore, but because this is the final series, we don't end up seeing what happens to
Mm,
the Borg and the Undine conflict, right?
I
Star
see.
Trek Online kind of expands on that. They're like, oh yeah, the Undine continuously tries to come in and destroy the Borg forever, and then come in and try and take over the galaxy, but we don't really hear much after Voyager.
Oh, I just found a picture of the Undine. What the heck?
Oh,
These guys
that
are
is
fat.
no, that is not the Undine. That is
No.
no, the Undine is the same thing as the species 8472.
Okay, I just
Species 8,
who are these guys then?
those guys, I think they're just random. I don't think they're
All right,
actually,
who cares? Who
yeah,
cares? Anyway, so
I don't think they're actually from Star Trek, but
you're saying
yeah,
you're saying.
so the reason why they're called species 8472 is because we end up learning about them from the Borg. And the Borg don't classify species as names. They classify them
Huh,
as numbers of how many species they've assimilated. So whenever
I
they
see.
met species 8472, they had assimilated 8,472 species, individual distinct species.
I see.
And
Oh, that's kind of spooky.
the closer they get to their home world, right, is the more the number gets closer to one, right? Because
Hmm.
obviously, whatever home world they start out
For
as,
sure.
species one, species two.
Have you seen Species One?
No,
Oh.
no,
All right.
the
Well, we'll say that for the Borg episode. What I want to know is what these guys are doing right now.
yeah. So right now, so after this kind of resurgence of the idea that, first of all, not everything needs to be conquered. Secondly, there are a lot of species out there that are worth preserving, right?
I don't know, man. Everything does kind of need to be conquered, in my opinion, or maybe that's just the 40K in me.
I think that might be the 40k in you because, right, the Federation doesn't conquer worlds.
And they should.
They do, they do
They'd have a lot. They'd have a
diplomatically.
lot more land.
They might have a lot more land, but they would have had a lot more enemies,
Uh-huh.
and it would be harder to control, right? Whenever you conquer a planet, it's not like you subjugate those people easily.
Not if they're all dead.
Yeah, that might be. There's no point in having a whole bunch of worlds if you don't have enough population to serve those all those worlds.
Throw people in vats.
I see.
But all I'm saying is not enough war, in my opinion, in Star Trek. There needs to be more violence. Look, the species, they had it. They're going to take down the Borg. They had it.
Well, they
They
were going to
just
take down the
disappear.
entire
They leave.
galaxy, and then yeah, they get destroyed by this new torpedo. This torpedo makes them
So
have
funny.
severe casualties after
Because
they
they're
were winning so well.
cringe.
Yeah. So
All right, so
they go
yeah, what
back
are they
in.
doing right now?
Yeah, so they go back into isolation. The current theory is that there was a resurgence of the idea that there are species worth preserving and not everything needed to be
Mm.
conquered. So they
But not the
decided,
Borg.
yes, not the Borg. They really do need more.
Yeah,
Again,
fuck the Borg.
the aftermath says basically the Borg continue to patrol the border of fluidic space, um, and there are several attempts to try and make contact with species 8472, but we don't ever really see where those contacts end up leaving us.
I see, I see. Okay. What are your thoughts on this species 8472?
Yeah, I mean, I like this species and I find them interesting for two reasons. One is that we really only know them as species 8472, right? Like we only
It's
see,
funny. You'd think they'd give him a name.
right, we only know them because the Borg invaded their territory and found them, right? First of all,
Hmm.
we would have never heard about them had the Borg not tried to conquer. The Borg was like, okay, well, we have the Federation down below. We have basically the Dominion over to the right. And so there's not a lot for us to conquer right now without significant casualties. Let's
Hmm.
start investigating other realms. Maybe we can go to other
Dimensions.
realms, dimensions, and go conquer them, build up, and destroy the rest of the galaxy. And Species
Like an asshole.
8472 was like, hey, we could easily destroy you, and we want to conquer and
Everything else.
destroy the impure. Which is what they said. Everything was impure. You know, they want to destroy the impure. And so it's just a really interesting species. Plus their
Mm.
psychic abilities and the fact that the Borg think that they're the peak of perfection is just insane.
It's funny the Borg think they're the peak of perfection.
Yeah, there's two things that the Borg really like, and it's the this species uh, through evolutionary perfection and the Omega particle, which we
All
will
right,
talk
well,
about
that's
later.
a whole nother can of
Yeah,
worms.
that
What
is a
the hell?
whole nother can of worms. That is a little thing for the rest of the people watching. But
Okay.
yeah,
I guess my particle.
your particle.
Mm.
Yeah, those are the two things that those are the only two things that they have given the name perfection to.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Okay. All right. This one doesn't seem to get a lot of love from the community, in my opinion. I've never heard of this one before.
Yeah, again, that's because we only really deal with them in one series, and those
Hmm.
dealings are very localized, right? We get a
They really don't
couple.
have a character to rally behind either. It
Right.
doesn't look like.
They go to war with the Borg, and then they start trying to do some stuff behind the scenes to the Federation, and then we don't really get anything else out of them. There is a couple, like there was one individual that got stuck in the galaxy because all of his species 8472 had retreated, right? And he
I
ends up getting
see.
stuck. And so what's really interesting is that Voyager keeps running into him, which is kind of funny.
Mm.
Um, Throughout their voyages, but we don't really hear a lot. The mystery behind them
What
is so
happened to that
invisible
guy who
and
fell in love
interesting.
with one?
Yeah, so basically, because he fell in love with them, this person down on the space station, right, where they're
Mm.
training to be human, which is why.
Did he know that they were an alien?
Um, yes, that was the whole reason why he was down there, is because they found out that, right, they're
Okay.
impersonating Starfleet, they're impersonating the
Yeah,
Federation on
yeah,
these
yeah.
places, and he goes,
Mm.
okay, well, I'm going to do some reconnaissance missions, and he very quickly finds out that this is not what it seems. It seems that these are, aliens,
Oh.
and eventually it's revealed that it's species E472.
Yeah.
But
So does he marry this thing, or did he just leave?
no, so after deciding to destroy the space stations, basically they're like, hey, you could come with us. Or, Chakotay was like, hey, you could come on Voyager, you could join us. But this person goes, no, I think I'm needed back at my own realm. And on top of that, now that I know what humanity is actually about, now I've had this experience, I can better fight for the ability not to go and pretty much destroy this entire galaxy. So the idea is that
Young man, in your ability to make love to me was enough to sail your entire dimension.
that's
Good
right.
job,
That's right.
and
So the idea here is
goodbye.
that she and every other one of the species 8472 on that, space station decided to go back and try to
Mm.
give the higher ups or whatever governing body, we don't even know what governing body they have, um,
Yeah.
the idea that humanity was not actually this grave threat against them and their sovereignty.
No, they could be.
They could be if the
Mm.
yeah, they could be if the
With a
Federation for
little
whatever
pushing.
reason wants to go to war with them, but they
I would
don't.
love to see the Federation just go sicko mode on some poor country.
Well, there are a
Hey.
couple of those.
You,
There are a couple of those.
all right? We want peace, sir. Oh no, it doesn't appear you want peace. Then you have chosen absolute eradication. Prepare.
Right.
We have built one warship. This one warship can counter anything you can throw at it. Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
Uh,
very technologically advanced, which is why the
mhm.
humans, for a lot of species, are very scary.
Oh, totally.
Right.
All right. Well, I think we'll end it there unless you have any
That
closing
works.
statements.
No,
Any?
I think that's pretty much, good. I think, again, I think they're a really interesting species, which is why I decided to do this.
It's just a shame they don't have a name. You know what I mean?
Well, again, they have the name is the Undine or the Undine.
Yeah, but that's stupid.
That's what they're called. Either that or species 8472.
Mm. All right. Well, all right. We'll end it there. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. I don't know what we're doing next episode. I never know what we're doing next episode. I
Yep,
hope it's the Borg. Borg sound fun. I
we
like
might do
them.
it. Yep,
The Hive Queen with them big old bonkos.
that's right.
Um, and um, and yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching.
Yep. Goodbye, guys.